this is KTS, Milpitas, San Jose. And here is KTS, and this is a cat show. Silly Kelly here, and I have a movie review. I have seen the James Bond movie, so I will review it now. A James Bond movie. Well, sort of preview it since it just came out. It's sort of a review. It was pretty good. It was better than the last one, which came out about 4 years ago. It was called Skyfall, and in this one, instead of the supervillain going after like the world and trying to destroy the world, he actually goes after MI6 because he's like an ex-agent or something, which you kind of get from the preview anyway, so it doesn't give away anything. And Javier Berdam plays the bad guy, and he could actually play Khan in the they did a Wrath of Khan movie, but they're not remaking that, so that's good. But he played himself. He played a little bit more of a twisted character than he did in his other movies, and he goes up against Daniel Craig as James Bond, and he's a nasty villain, and he has. Well, I'm not going to give away what his motivations are because that would give away the movie, and also the gross stuff. But basically he does a terrorist attack on London and takes out the MI6, which is the James Bond Secret Agent Society, and then the M and the other and Q and James Bond try to get things back together and find out who did it and stop the bad guy. A lot of action scenes, a lot of your typical James Bond ridiculous sort of, ooh, I can get out of literally anything because I'm James Bond and I'm awesome. There's a lot of that. But that's what you get from a James Bond movie. You get a lot of, stuff like that. Like, he's just, I'm really invincible, except when bad guys shoot the good guys. Other than me, that's typical of James Bond. And Daniel Craig is getting a little long in the tooth now. I think he's around my age, so it's kind of like, he's all okay. It's getting harder to do this stuff. At least they established that a little bit in the movie. Like, he does this test and he sort of doesn't make it at first. So it's kind of like the Sean Connery one when Sean Connery returned, did Never Say Never Again, kind of like that. Had elements of Majesty's Secret Service and some of the other ones. It was trying to be an old classic James Bond movie. It had John Logan was one of the writers, which is considerably better than his writing Star Trek Nemesis. I think he was actually made to write, probably better off writing James Bond movies than writing Star Trek movies. So I liked it. It was cool. I wasn't like a 5-star awesome movie. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't average either. It was one of the better ones. Or I wouldn't say it's like the classic ones with Connery. It was implying a lot of that kind of stuff in there. 1962 was mentioned a lot because it's the 50th anniversary. And they did about 23 of these movies over the course of 50 years. They've actually had a lot of them over the course of the 50 years if you look at it. But if you look back at the 60s ones, I should say, they did one almost every year. So they had a bunch of them in the 60s. Then they stopped for a couple of years. They did a bunch of them in the 80s. Then they stopped for a couple of years. And then in the 90s, they did a bunch more. So they were kind of bunched together. If they were actually averaged out, it would be one every 2 years for 50 years. And they should be up to 25. And it's about right, kind of. But they've skipped a couple of years for some of these. So, James Bond, Skyfall. Go check it out. I don't want to give too much of it out because it just came out. So I'm not going to say too much about it. You should go see it in the movie theaters. And it was pretty good. So go see it. Yeah, that's my movie review. This is Silly Kelly, and giving it 4 stars, I guess. Yeah, 4 stars. So there we go. Skyfall. Yeah, go see it.